installing Ubuntu 18.4 LTS or long-term support. So the first thing we want to do is head over to ubuntu.com, down to the download section, and have a search for Ubuntu server. The site may have changed. You'll notice we're using 18.4 rather than the 18.10 or anything after that. We're looking for long-term support, LTS. That means that long-term support is supported for 5 years, whereas the intermediate servers tend to be, I think, 6 months. So this will download. It's approximately 600 meg, and it'll come down as an ISO image, which is basically just a CD image. 800 and thingy megs. Okay, so we've installed onto a virtual machine and we're running it in VMware, but it doesn't really matter where you run it. You can run it on a old machine on bare metal or virtualized. We're doing it virtualized because it's easy to do from the laptop. I run all of my Ubuntu servers virtualized on either Dell servers or little NAS servers, all depending on what they're needed for. So first thing to do, choose the language we're going to use. I'm going to use English as it's my native tongue, and we're going to just change the keyboard to UK. You can also do the keyboard test to identify your keyboard. It works quite well, but we know it's UK, so it's going to be nice and easy. We're going to go for a normal install. We're not doing any of the cloud stuff this time. I'm going to DHCP it as well. Just makes it a bit faster on the startup. We can always come back and change that. I've got no proxy server, so I'm not going to bother with that. Now this is my local Ubuntu. You don't need to change that, just where it picks up all the updates from. We're going to use the entire disk. If you thought that you were going to need more space in the future, I'd possibly go for LVM, but we're not too concerned. 20 gig is going to be more than enough for anything we're going to do. So it's going to give us a summary. We're pretty much done. It's pretty much a next all the way, apart from this bit here where you have to confirm, and we're into putting in our user details here. So for name, I'm just going to use Depicus because that's our name. Service name, we're going to use something interesting like Depicus01. A lot of thought went into that. And username Depicus, you can put in any name you want. And we're going to use a really awful password, but you really want to secure it down with a good password. But make sure you know what it is. SSH, we're not going to do this time round. But it would have been nice. We'll do that perhaps later. Here's a list of the things that you can install. None of these are really interested to us today. We just want a bare metal install, and then things that we need to install later we can do. So we're going to go and continue on. And this is just an information page to tell you what the current progress of updates. So you can see that it's already made the partition and partitioned the disk, configured the network, and now it's basically just going to install all of the files from the file system. So this is going to take a few minutes, installing the kernel. And we will probably fast forward here to cut down on the time. And we are done. So time to reboot. And we'll have a full install of Ubuntu. So it basically takes about 5 minutes for an installation. It's very quick. Make sure you take out the installation media. We don't really need to worry about that, because we're not booting directly from the CD, or we won't be when we reboot anyway. So we're pretty much done on the installation. As I say, it's a pretty much next, unless you've got specific requirements. But pretty much everything that you need to do, you can do after the machine, the virtual machine or the bare metal machine is started up. So we're at the login. You'll get this every now and again at the start. Sometimes there'll be things that run in the background that come up on the screen, so you'll need to log in twice, but not very often, and it's nothing to worry about. So username, password, and we're in. So the first thing you can see here, there's lots of packages to be updated, 116 packages, of which 47 are security updates. So we're going to do pretty much everything. So sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. So update updates all of the files to be updated. Upgrade does the upgrade, and we're also going to do an auto remove as well, if I can spell it correctly. And this will remove anything that is no longer needed. So just type in your password and away we go. So the update just pulls down all of the packages. So all of these get commands at the top are pulling down a list of the packages that are available. Then we'll pull down all of the packages that can be updated. So this long list here is all the packages, and you can see the size of them on the right hand side. So this one right at the bottom, Linux firmware, 64 meg. OpenVM tools just going past there at 514k. And then we're onto the installation, and you now get a nice little progress bar along the bottom to tell you how much longer it will take. And surprisingly enough, these progress bars tend to work quite well. They tend to be fairly accurate, unlike some progress bars I can mention. But this will mean now that and obviously it might be slightly slower on the speed. I haven't got the best connection to the internet in the world, but it's not the worst. But obviously it needs to pull all of these down from your local Ubuntu distribution center. So it will unpack and install everything that it needs to do. Update kernel, the core of the operating system, Linux firmware, boot imagery, basically everything that needs to run the machine. But generally these aren't like Windows updates. They're generally fairly safe. They tend to come in on irregular periods, but you can set up alerts for when there are updates, and we'll go through that maybe in another video. I tend to update mine when security updates come out, so I'll look at them every day or so. But we're at 99%, we will nearly be done. And you can see there that we've got open SSH server, so we will, and here we go for the remove. So basically grub PC bin was no longer needed, so they freed up nearly 3 meg. So I'm just going to give it a quick reboot now. Not that you necessarily need to do the reboot, it's just that I prefer once installation is, there's nothing important on the server at the moment, so it doesn't matter if I reboot it. If it was a production server, then I wouldn't reboot unless it asked for a reboot. but because this one it's a fresh install, so there's nothing on it at the moment. It doesn't matter too much, so I'm quite happy to reboot it straight away. And you see that this time no package to be updated, and out of those, none of those are security patches. And you can see our IP address there, 192.168.43.219. So what I'm going to do now is I have a script that I have on GitHub that will install for me a copy of Webmin. You've never seen Webmin before. It's a web interface to the administration of the Ubuntu servers or any Linux server, but it's very handy for things that you can do on the command line but would take a while. Sometimes you can do a lot quicker using Webmin, so I tend to have this on every server I install. So it runs as a website, uses port 10,000, so it doesn't tie up any of your main ports. It's fairly lightweight. You don't really notice it, even on a small box. I've got a Raspberry Pi, or a couple of Raspberry Pis running, and they all have Webmin on as well. And even then, I mean, we're talking old Raspberry Pi A's and B's, so they haven't got a huge amount of oomph in them, but they still manage to run the Pis or the Webmin just fine. But it's quite handy to have just for stuff that you need to do. So that is Ubuntu installed. There really is not a huge amount to it. Over the next few videos, we're going to go through a few things that we can do with Ubuntu, web servers, all sorts of strange things. We'll do a bit of message queuing, maybe have it as a Java repository. So we've got our IP address there. I'm just going to log out now, so exit, just to exit out. And that is us done for today.